Hello everyone and welcome back to the first of this week's 2 gaming news recaps. We've got a super interesting show today and we are set for a hell of a week ahead of us with GDC kicking off shortly after this video launches, so stay tuned to the channel for that. And let's get into the video. Let's kick it off with another rather crazy Google report from Kotaku. Their sources have shared quite a lot about what Google have planned, and you know what, it actually seems pretty interesting. Of course, take all of this stuff with a pinch of salt because there has been no official confirmation yet. So, of course, Google are going to be announcing something major for gaming at GDC. They're said to be focusing more on their streaming service more than their hardware, which does not seem like it's going to be a full console. Instead, they're focusing on their strengths, which of course is the internet, but reportedly also releasing a controller that is designed to work with their streaming platform. As for what this streaming platform does, what it is, well, pricing, availability, all of that, we don't know. It might be revealed at GDC, but right now the basics seem to be rather similar to their Project Stream test that saw Assassin's Creed Odyssey be playable on the Chrome web browser. The majority of reports for that, from what I've seen, were quite glowing when it was actually done, with low latency and very good visuals, but Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a very latency tolerant game in the grand scheme of things. Really, latency is going to be the kicker here, but Google are better set to overcome that problem than most because of course, their massive access to a network of top-end data centers. Platform-wise, well, their service seems to be essentially on everything. Mobile devices, PC, Macs, even Chromecasts, which is very major because of the low price of Chromecasts. Of course, Google are also Google. They have access to YouTube, and therefore they seem to be building a number of innovative integrations into the streaming service. Reportedly, they're going to allow users to jump into a game at the point that a streamer is. So if you watch a streamer get totally destroyed in a game, you could hit a button. If you own the game, you could try the same challenge that they maybe failed at. Now, this idea could drive more sales of games on their platform and additionally perhaps be a source of income for YouTubers and streamers. Now, speaking of YouTube, while it's rumored that you'll be able to purchase games from the watch page if it's a gaming video, and more interestingly, that you'll actually be able to bring up an in-game walkthrough video for maybe a YouTuber, and when you're in a game, you'll just hit a button, go into a menu or something like that, and it will bring up a walkthrough at the same point that you are in the game. It'll just automatically be able to know that. Of course, that's going to require developer support, but I think it's fair to say that that is decently innovative. Now, is this innovation in a direction that's actually useful? Well, I'm not that sure, to be honest, though it does give them a leg up in terms of their feature set as compared to other streaming platforms. Overall, look, I think it could be pretty disruptive. Not for Twitch games or esports focused titles like LoL or Dota, but for big budget AAA games it could be really nice. You see, people with maybe a 4th gen i5 or a 3rd gen one and a 750 Ti, yeah, they can play CSGO or LoL fine, but they can't play anything near Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Well, with a system like that, maybe a really low-end PC and a streaming service like this, people could play the most demanding titles out there. Now sure, it likely would not be as good as native, but it would be a hell of a lot cheaper, and based on what we've heard of the Project Stream beta, it's basically closer to native than any other live streaming service has got so far. Of course, I don't really like Google as a company. Data privacy is really important to me, but given what I do for a job, well, Google are kind of unavoidable. More details on this as it develops, but I'll end with this. I think you might be skeptical of a streaming service right now. Sure, that'll hold for a few years. But in 10 years? In 20? For cities at least, internet will probably be comparable to a local Ethernet now. And if you've ran, say, Steam in-home streaming over Ethernet on a good setup, it's really, really strong. So this, for a large part of gaming, this certainly is the future, and in terms of efficiency and how we use resources, it probably is more economically efficient to centralize resources to large processing centers and distribute them through a streaming service. I know that sounds really spooky, especially to people maybe like me who have a big beefy rig at home that we all love, but that might just be how the economics ends up going. Of course, I'm definitely not saying that's ideal, but that's just one way it could go. Next, though, Rainbow Six Siege. It's one of gaming's most notable comeback stories, but today we're talking about the revenue-sharing model of its esports scene, and notably, how that contrasts with just about everyone, especially the, hey, we're the NFL now, Activision Blizzard esports model. So, the core of their model is that of these 16 teams in this new pilot program, well, it's the phase 2 of the pilot program, they'll receive 30% of the revenue generated from pro league sets that are sold. Now, for team-branded stuff, well, the teams will earn 30%, with 30% of the team's cut going to the players. Then finally, 30% of the Road to SI event revenue goes to the prize pool, and if a team on the program wins, then the portion of the money that was funded by the revenue share is split 50-50 between the team and the players. And I think this is really worth calling out as a healthy esports model, especially when contrasted to the Overwatch and Call of Duty ones. Overwatch sells extremely expensive team franchises based on location, with Call of Duty set to continue that trend, with franchises reportedly going for as much as 25 million. Here's the problem though, that is predicated pretty much on extreme success. It's not based on an evergreen, fan-driven growth model like Rainbow Six Siege's model. The Activision way is extremely open to risk if a game's viewership drops, and certainly looking at the viewership, well, Call of Duty being similarly priced to Overwatch for a franchise seems a bit mad, and even Overwatch itself seems to be experiencing a downturn. Now, from what I've heard from two people sort of familiar with the matter, Overwatch League Season 1 underperformed financially for team owners, but that's not really something that I can verify. But to conclude, I've really got to cast my lot with Siege. The rev share model is far more based on the actual success of the esports scene and the actual player base of the game, meaning it's going to support more natural growth, and it's likely not going to come as much at the expense of the grassroots scene. And that is something that Blizzard essentially destroyed with Overwatch. Next, let's talk about the Apex Legends Battle Pass. Season 1 of the hottest game in town, Apex, has begun. Many are excited and many are a bit pissed off. Why? Well, Battle Pass came out, and while it probably will sell quite well on paper, well, unfortunately for Respawn, the rewards are really a bit naff. So, the Battle Pass is 100 levels of progression. Everyone who plays the game during Season 1 will earn experience and move through those levels. By default, players who are on the free version, so the default version of the Battle Pass, they'll only unlock the free rewards along the way. However, if they choose to purchase the Battle Pass, they will retroactively get the premium rewards for each level that they have completed, and will get premium rewards for each subsequent level that they go on to complete. Then on top of that, there is the Battle Pass bundle. It gets you the premium Battle Pass and 25 levels of progression instantly. So if you were on level 50 on the free pass and then you purchase this bundle, you would be boosted up to level 75 of the pass, and then you would get 75 levels of rewards. Now, the battle pass costs 950 Apex coins and the bundle costs 2800 Apex coins. However, up to 1000 Apex coins are earnable through the pass, meaning that players could actually earn the next battle pass by playing through the current one, which seems like a pretty decent player retention trick. Now, that all seems reasonable, so you might be wondering, why are people upset? Put simply, the premium rewards are really weak. So there are 3 new legendary skins that are themed after the Battle Pass. Free players will get 1, as well as 5 Apex packs, and then a bunch of trackers, 18 trackers. Now, trackers are just little things that tally up stats and display them on your character card, and that's only something that's visible for a few seconds in a match, so it's not that important. And really, that's much of the problem. Things like trackers and icons form a decently significant portion of the pass, meaning that it's quite sparse in content overall, sparse to the point where it doesn't seem like the core audience of the game is that pleased. Now, from looking through EA's post, I've got to say I agree. There just is not much to it, especially since so many of the rewards are just like trackers or images or things like that. Really, having trackers as a reward is just junk in general, and it does highlight the problem of filler progression rewards in games like this, things like, trackers and sprays. And it's a broad problem that's faced by Apex Legends. The skins are fine, but they're not that exciting. The cosmetics just feel overpriced and underwhelming. I wouldn't be surprised if Apex Legends basically was earning significantly less per user than Fortnite. And at the end of the day, users are fine, but money is what counts for the companies. So while this probably will make them a lot of money, the Battle Pass, I think they're going to have to put a lot more effort in if they want to monetize this game to its full potential. Now, speaking of disappointing players, Let's talk about Bethesda. Now, this is Bethesda, the publisher, not just Bethesda Softworks, the game studio. They have confirmed their E3 press conference, so unlike Sony and co, they're not stepping away from E3, meaning that E3 still will be somewhat relevant this year. What are we going to see? Well, Doom Eternal for sure. We'll probably see more of the latest Rage game, which seems to certainly have Doom inspirations in its combat system, which is something I'm very interested in indeed. Now on the Bethesda Softworks front, well, we're likely going to see a lot more about Starfield because it is set to release before The Elder Scrolls 6. To be honest, I'm pretty excited about Starfield. Yes, in spite of Fallout 76. After all, Starfield is a single-player game that'll likely have mod support. Now, it sucks that modders will have to fix the bloody thing, but like with most Bethesda RPGs, there usually is a nugget of something in there somewhere. I really like science fiction, so I think it'll be a pretty novel take on the Bethesda RPG. As for Fallout 76, I think they'll likely talk about the roadmap more. They'll maybe make a major content announcement for their winter season. Hopefully Todd will actually deal with the criticism. It's just not something they can, swipe under the rug. No way. As for The Elder Scrolls 6, maybe it'll get a mention. As for The Elder Scrolls Blades, it might get a release date. Blades looks really sloppy though, even for a mobile game, so I can't really say that I'm that interested in it. But still, a big new science fiction RPG? Yeah, I guess, sign me up. On the topic of new games though, it's worth talking about Gearbox, because they have teased another Duke Nukem game. Yeah, I know, a little bit awkward after the deeply embarrassing last outing, but given the success of the latest Doom title, of course more of a retro throwback, I could see them pulling something similar. I mean, pulling Duke out of the 90s is going to be kind of tricky, because if you update him, it's just going to be really lame. So I think the thing they should really do is just go full bore into the 90s stylings and totally own it for the franchise. Now, I doubt they could pull off the gameplay of Doom, because it's Gearbox, but yeah, they can try, I suppose. I'd certainly like to see more games of this ilk, and we'll likely see a bit more about it in PAX. There is other game news though. System Shock 3 has been teased again by none other than Warren Spector himself. This happened at the Unity keynote during GDC, and while we don't know that much, I mean, hey, it looks gorgeously immersive. I'm absolutely down for another entry in that franchise, especially with the likes of Warren Spector being involved. But I have seen some Unity mocking though, and I kind of want to set a bit of a record straight here. I'm a game developer technically. I've got a technical education in engine programming and graphics programming, so I feel like I should set the record straight here. The general gaming audience in YouTube, just from reading comments, is simply not educated in game engines, and that's totally fine. It would be absurd to expect people to be just educated about boring things like game engines, so I can't blame anyone for not knowing what the crack is there, or for being misled. But unfortunately, many YouTube pundits have misled. They've cherry-picked the worst junk that people have thrown on Steam irresponsibly. They've just misled their audiences on the topic with Unity. It's just no reflection of how the engine is used professionally, and just about anybody who actually makes games is often cringing through a lot of these videos, and let's be real, you know the ones that I'm talking about. Unity generally is a little bit behind UE4 in terms of the pure visuals, but it's also a lot more flexible and portable. Still, though, it can produce top-end graphics, with this System Shock 3 teaser being a great example. Now, it is true that, say, with what we do in my game studio, we're not leveraging the advanced graphics that Unity can do. We're far more art-driven than tech-driven, so for us, it's all about the portability, and the flexibility is the real strength. Now, look, that's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's an important one, just to point out that Unity, it's not just some sort of trash creator, and this channel exists to sort of promote reasonable discussion, and in this particular area, I think the game punditry scene on YouTube has been pretty lacking. Next, though, we do have another trend, and that is big games going mobile. We saw it with the next Alien Isolation game, which was a bit depressing. Fortnite, though, was able to hit 50 million players with its core release, but guess what propelled Fortnite to 200 million plus? Mobile. So it comes as no surprise that Activision Blizzard have announced Call of Duty Mobile, a new title that basically brings a mashup of Call of Duty multiplayer experiences to mobile devices. Looking at the gameplay, you know what, it does look pretty authentic to the Call of Duty experience. It features maps from the franchise, the franchise's various sub-series, including Black Ops' Nuketown and Modern Warfare's Crossfire, of course a map that I remember pretty fondly from dozens of local PC LAN tournaments that I played way back in the day. Now, there's no release date for this. There will be beta tests over the next few months, though. Right now, they say the focus is on the core multiplayer experience, but they plan to add much more, so I'd imagine zombies and Blackout. The game is free, and it's going to have free updates, so that suggests a Fortnite-like business model for it. And you know what, this makes a lot of sense, but perhaps less so to those who are watching the channel with the average age of people who watch this channel, according to my YouTube stats, and, me as well. I mean, we're not ancient, but we're old enough for most of us to have not grown up with touch-capable devices being a thing in our key developmental years. We just don't have the fine motor skills that many of these kids do. I mean, just look at this kid destroying a phase player using an iPad. The touch-native generation, especially, say, like 12-year-olds today, they're not going to have the problems with a lot of mobile games that we do. If I play a shooter, I'll just feel ancient and useless, but that's not the case to them, so it seems like companies are rushing to go in and serve this growing new market of, what I'm going to call touch natives, i.e. people for whom a touch screen is as natural as a keyboard and mouse because it's what they grew up with from when they were like 6 years old or maybe 5 or 4. And actually, when I think about the fundamentals, unlike a gamepad where you're kind of moving the stick to do the movement, with a touchscreen, it offers direct movement translation, just like a mouse, so there actually is a decent amount of top-end potential there. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. It's another example of this trend, and it's something we're going to see a lot more in the future. Next though, Epic Games. Yep, Epic just cannot stay out of the news. We recently covered the Phoenix Point exclusivity debacle, but there is something else here: privacy. The core of the allegations against Epic is that their launcher is very intrusive, tracking a broad range of player activity, snooping around your computer, and even nabbing a file from Steam, a file with personal user data, with that being the largest, most visible complaint. Basically, Steam stores a copy of some of your data locally, including things like your friends list for offline use. Well, people noticed that the Epic launcher copies that file without your permission. Now, this sounds like a major problem, with Valve having this to say: we are looking into what information Epic Launcher collects from Steam. And they went on to say interested users can find local config.vdf and other Steam configuration files in their Steam client's installation directory and open them in a text editor to see what is contained in these files. So that's the file that the Epic launcher is grabbing, and this seems like a very major problem. Epic have since responded with it transpiring that their launcher grabs the file, copies it over, encrypts it, but then only sends data to Epic if the user gives their permission, with Tim Sweeney going on to say that it operates in this rather strange manner because basically it was thrown together very quickly. Well, it sure does sound like something that might be done in a university project, and I'm actually willing to believe Tim on this one. I've done my fair share of uni projects, and I know how coders work when they are operating under deadlines, but still, it does not excuse it being done like this. This is not acceptable from a major store backed by a company like Epic. Of course, though, there have been many more allegations against them. Many of them were collated in this popular Reddit thread that performed extremely well, got a pretty ridiculous amount of upvotes. Plus, there's also a widely circulated image from 4chan's V-board. Now, both of these are wildly speculative, and they do a lot of cherry picking, with that image from V actually having its own debunking counterpart. Basically, loads of people are talking about web tech who don't know about web tech. After all, the Epic Store and Steam are basically just glorified websites. Now, I don't know much about web tech either, but from the people who I've talked to and the programmer discussions on this topic that I've seen on the likes of the r/programming subreddit, a lot of this stuff's kind of typical. Hell, if you snoop your own traffic, you might be pretty surprised where things are coming from and going to. And really, a lot of applications work in a way that you probably wouldn't be particularly happy with if you knew fully how they worked. So a lot of this stuff seems super alarming for the Epic Store, but actually a lot of it is very common. And I'm not saying it's a good thing that that's common, to be very clear. There's a lot of shady stuff and a lot of, let's just say, shortcuts and odd things that go on with many of the apps you use on a daily basis. Now, of course, skepticism is healthy, especially when it's a company that Tencent has a large say in. While they don't seem to have Huawei levels of government connection, frankly, it's still a bit worrisome. At the end of the day, that's a government with policies, especially on human rights and freedoms and privacy, that are fundamentally incompatible with the Western way of life. So Western companies should not be surprised when their users become skeptical. And a lot more Western companies should think about that. So there you go. That is it for the Roundup. The first of two this week. Of course, so much has happened on the channel since our last Roundup. I have done a feature on Google's place in gaming, what they're doing, No Man's Sky Online, and the crazy big redemption story of Hello Games, and why that might be something that's worth paying attention to. I mean, hey, now it's a 72% in Steam, and then an interesting one on the business model behind Dead or Alive 6, one that we're actually beginning to see in other titles like the Call of Duty franchise, and a personal favorite game of mine, StarCraft 2. So you can check out all those videos on the channel, of course. More on this channel tomorrow because GDC is kicking off. We're going to have so much to talk about. And yeah, with that, let me know what you thought about the stories in this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.